Fluffy was in my filming place. She thinks it's really nice because I've got my pillow up against the wall, and she likes to have her back supported when she naps. Don't you throw up on me! Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I'm doing a tag, which is the Music to Books tag by Nicole Pierman, and she tagged me in it. Her channel is linked below. My cat has decided to join me for this. Some tags are kind of boring because they're very vague or generalized, but I really like the two that I've done, this one and the one I've done before, also by Nicole Pierman, because they're very sort of in-depth, or they get you to look at things in a different way than you normally would, and so they kind of get you to think about things, and I like that. So let's get started. So how this works is Nicole has picked out 10 songs, and then she's written prompts based on those. So the first one is Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran, and the prompt for that one is a character you would be with forever if they were real. Which has basically started off the whole thing with the hardest question, because I do have a number of fictional crushes. Nicole talked about Rice, and I would agree with that mostly, except I don't know if my aceness would be very compatible there. She also mentioned Mr. Darcy, which I'm going to have to say I would pick. It's kind of a toss-up between Mr. Darcy and Faramir from The Lord of the Rings. Particularly book Faramir. He's even nicer than movie Faramir, although movie Faramir is very good looking. But I have to say that Mr. Darcy, the whole socially anxious dweeb bit, is something I'm very much drawn to. Also, he doesn't need an heir because he has a little sister, so we'd be covered there. And I can pretend he's ace if I want to, because it's not specified. Whereas with Rice, it's very much specified. Alright, number 2 is Spit It Out by Slipknot. And the prompt for that one is a book or series that has pissed you off. And one of the more difficult things about this tag is that there are actually like 3 or 4 out of the 10 that are kind of negative, like piss you off, or another one is about things being poorly written. So, and I like to do mainly positive reviews, so I had to think a little harder because it's not my natural instinct is just to never talk about those ones, so I had to think a little bit, but I was able to drum up the appropriate number of negative cases, and I've actually mentioned them on this channel before, so it's a couple of them are some things you've never heard before, never heard in as much detail. So for this one, I picked Serafina, and that one's by Rachel Hartman. Actually, it's the sequel to Serafina that has the worst problem with this, and that is that the ending is unsatisfactory. The ending to Serafina is also unsatisfactory, but that's okay because it's the first one, there's a sequel. But the second one, there's no more books following the same characters after that, so the unsatisfactory ending is really irritating, and I really regret ever reading it in the first place because I'm just a very satisfying ending type person. I don't like open or vague endings. Bitter Blue also has a slightly open and vague ending, although not quite as bad in my opinion. Bitter Blue, which is by Kristen something. Basically, some of the characters are still in a bad situation at the end, and it's just not resolved at all, and that really, really irritated me, so because of that, I didn't read her other book that's set in the same world but with different main characters, which is Tess of the Road, because I assumed that it would have a similar dissatisfying ending, because obviously that's kind of what the author likes to do. So what I really wish is that there would be some kind of a keyword or little passphrase that had to go on the back or descriptions of books saying this book doesn't have a satisfying ending, because that way those of us who that's important to wouldn't pick up the book. Like, there are age ratings so you can tell what kind of a book it is in that way. There should also be unsatisfying ending letters or something, because there's some people who are fine with that, but there's a lot of people who are not, and then it just upsets us. Now we have number 3 is Video Games by Lana Del Rey, and the prompt for that is a book or series you can't help but feel a loving nostalgia for. And there are a number of these because I read a lot as a kid, and my mom read to our whole family in the evenings for a long time, so there's a whole set of books that fit that. So like the ones that my mom would read to us were mainly Rowan of Ren, the series, and also Chronicles of Narnia, The Hobbit, and Harriet, James Harriet, the books about him. Fluffy's moved over here now. But there are some that I also read on my own that I'm very nostalgic for. I decided to pick the Avalon series, which is these. There's a lot more. There's a lot more. But these are the 4 that I happen to have found in like library sales and things like that. There's actually at least 2 series. I think actually there's 3 or 4, but I've mainly read the Web of Magic, the Avalon Web of Magic series, and the Avalon Quest for Magic series. So the Web of Magic series is first, that's what these 3 are in, and then the second series is Quest for Magic. You can kind of see that it's kind of thicker than these ones, and so they're a little bit longer and a little bit more, slightly more grown up. They're middle grade. The imagination is just as good. I really like the magic system in these and the whole system of worlds. There's a number of worlds. You actually travel between the magical worlds on the Web of Magic, the Magic Web, through portals, and that has actually inspired a lot of my imaginings of magic because of how influential it was when I was a kid. And so some of the ways that I write even now can be traced back to the lore from these books. And then the next one is You're Welcome from Moana, which I really love that song. And the prompt for that is a character that starts out full of themselves but ends up changing by the end of the book or series. And for that I actually happened to draw from the same series because this girl in the middle, who's also rainbow hair girl and walking through the fairy forest girl, is named Kara, and at the beginning of the series she's very full of herself. She's the popular girl at school. She was kind of the queen bee at school. She had all the cool friends. She was rich. She had the nice clothes. So she starts out very caring a lot about those things and about herself and how cool she is and how she appears to others, and she has to gradually change into someone who very much cares about all the magical creatures who are in trouble and who becomes a very important part of the little trio and also the wider world of magic. The next song is Madhouse by Anthrax, and the prompt for that is a book or series that was so poorly written it drove you mad, which has happened to me a couple of times. The worst case of which, I won't tell you what book or author it was, but I read 100 pages of the 600-page epic, and first of all, it didn't need to be 600 pages. Second of all, the epic sort of parts that were about scary things or very urgent bad things happening were actually kind of okay written, but the casual scenes, that's mystery sort of. So the scenes where 2 detectives were talking to each other like partners who'd known each other forever, those scenes were super awkward and just horribly written, and then the bad guy was cliched and stupid, and it was horrible. And so I finally DNF'd at 100 pages, except I didn't totally DNF because I skipped the end as I do normally when I'm going to DNF a book, and the ending was also really cringily written. That was an action scene, and that action scene was also really bad. It was an indie published book, I will admit, and another one that I had that I put down after just the first 2 pages that was an indie published book. On the first page there was a sentence that read, "The brave young man shielded the helpless young woman from the blast," or something like that. And I'm not going to even explain what's so wrong with that sentence. You can figure it out yourself. But my personal idea of what should be done to unpopular or unknown books that are terrible is that they should be left to suffer in obscurity, rather than, I don't mind bashing a popular book because everybody already knows about it, so It's not like I'm gonna boost them by saying negative things about them, which would probably happen if I mentioned unknown books and bashed them. Number 6 is Somebody to Love by Queen. The prompt is a book, author, poet, or series that needs more love and recognition. And for this one, there are also a number I could pick, but I've talked about most of them before because I think that, so I decided to pick Ren to the Rescue. The author is Sherwood Smith. I just don't hear a lot about it. It kind of straddles between being middle grade and YA, which is common for books that start out when the protagonist is like 11 or so, seems to be a common age, and then progresses with them into being a teenager. So this is one of those series, and it is about Ren, a girl named Ren, and her best friend Tess, and you find out right in the beginning that Tess is a secret princess, and so when they're 10 or 11 years old, Tess and her friend Ren get whisked off from the orphanage they've grown up in to the palace, and it turns out that Tess was hidden because her parents, the royalty, were afraid of a sorcerer who threatened them and would take her away or kill her, and so they bring her back in secret. But unfortunately, as you once again find out right at the beginning, Tess is found out and kidnapped anyway, and so Ren has to go and rescue her because for some reason she doesn't trust the adults to do it, which quite frankly I kind of agree with. And it's a major theme in my own story, the teenagers having to handle stuff because the adults won't do anything, slash are incapable. So I won't knock her for that. And she teams up with a couple of other young people, very young people, to rescue her friend. And I just love me a middle grade quest about little kids going off and doing stuff that adults can't do. So I think that one could use a little more love. Number 7 is Stress Out by 21 Pilots, and I actually have some weird nostalgic memories associated with that one because my roommate played that a lot when my roommate when I was in Bible school, and I particularly remember it playing while I was packing up to leave on our last day. So that brought up some memories for me, but the prompt is a book or series that stressed you out so much you either had to take a break or stop reading it entirely. And for that one, an obvious pick was Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. And it's just very dark and creepy, and not in a horror kind of way that people who like horror would like, just in a nasty sort of way. So I had to take frequent breaks when I was reading that. I think I only read like a chapter at a time, and then took at least the rest of the day away from it, if not more. And so it took me a long time to read, but I eventually did get through it and finish it, and the ending was really great. So if you're interested in reading that and you feel stuck in the middle and like you don't want to read more, because it's so dark, I would recommend skipping to the end rather than putting it down entirely, because the ending is very hopeful and uplifting. The 8th song is Sound of Silence, and Nicole is particularly talking about covers by Disturbed. And the prompt is a book or series that left you speechless in either a good or bad way. And for that one I chose in a good way, and I chose Temeraire because at the end it was one of those series where the end was so wonderful and lovely, and the whole series had been lovely and wonderful, and I really loved the characters, but I also really loved the ending that the characters got, so I just ended by sitting quietly. When I turned the last page, I closed the thing and just held it to my chest silently and hugged it. Those kinds of books that just need a hug. The 9th song is Viva la Revolution by The Addicts, and the prompt is a book or series that speaks to you about a political topic. And for that I have 2, one that I have already read and one that I will be reading soonish, maybe. And that is The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one by Amanda Lovelace, which is a poetry collection I talked about quite a bit in my July wrap-up video. And it's all about feminism, and all about being angry feminism, and being angry about all the things that have been done to women and are being done to women. And it's a very revolution inciting type of poetry collection, so I think that fits very well. And another also very revolutionary topic type book is The Beasts Who Fought for Fairyland Until the Very End and Further Still, which is a short story by my new almost favorite ever author, Catherine M. Valente, and it she published it on her blog, and it's about, for the first Fairyland book, when the ruler who the main character in the first Fairyland book fights against when she first took over, how the beasts who already lived in Fairyland, when she started oppressing them, etc., etc., how they fought back. And even the title makes me cry, makes me emotional, so I definitely know the whole story is gonna make me emotional, so I have to emotionally prepare myself to read that, kind of like I have to emotionally prepare myself for some animes. It just, you have to be in a steady sort of mood, because you're not going to handle it otherwise. So I'm waiting to tackle that one until I'm in a good place for it. The last one, number 10, is This Love by Maroon 5, a book or series that broke your heart and you can't get over it. And that one would definitely be Mastiff by Tamora Pierce. Tamora Pierce has this Tortal collection that is based in all in one country, but there's like 3 quartets and a duology, and then a trilogy. And now she's writing more because people will keep writing. The last book in her most recent trilogy, Mastiff, which is about a cop, beat cop mostly, turned detective maybe, but it's a very old medieval type of cop, so they don't have the normal monikers and everything. And actually she invented like a whole slang language for them to use, and you can figure out what all the words mean by context. It really adds to the world and it's really cool. Like cove means man, just a bunch of other things, and dog means cop, which is why the book's names are Terrier, Bloodhound, and Mastiff. They're different titles that the main character gets for being particularly good at her job as being a dog. And in the last book, Mastiff, the one thing that hurts my heart more than character death of someone I love is a character I love going evil, which happens in Mastiff. And I won't say much because it's a big spoiler, but it really wrecked me. And I haven't been able to read a Tamora Pierce book since. I really should try to get back into it because I enjoyed them so much. I think I'll start with First Test at some point, which is the first book of the Protector of a Small series. I've always been able to read it like a bunch of times in a row because I never get tired of it, so that would probably be the best one to start over with, but it'll just remind me of what happened. Oh gosh. So that one I still haven't gotten over. Maybe I'll be able to read her stuff again, but I don't think I'll ever get over it. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. You should go check out Nicole's. It's linked below. Oh, and if you would like to do this tag, I tag you. It really did make me think a lot and made me have some ideas that I hadn't thought of before. And I think it's a really interesting one to get to know how various books have affected people. So I'd love to see yours. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!